Hello, what's up guys? It's the Bonga, and today we're talking about the May Melee. This weekend is the last weekend of qualifier games for the May Melee. In a week, we're going to see the best 4 teams in the Overwatch League face off against each other. It's going to be awesome. And we're 2 weeks into the season, and we're starting to get a flow for how these teams are operating under the best competition. And I wanted to test a theory today. We're going to predict the games this weekend, but we're going to do it a little different. I want to test a theory. So in this week, we're going to play a game that I like to call WIN-STON or Lose-STON. My theory is main tank is the most important position on an Overwatch League team. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the games from this week and we're going to predict who's going to win solely on which team has the better main tank. And over the season, we're going to do this repeatedly. And I want to see if every time we pick a main tank, I want to see if that team tends to win more. Hopefully we can get over like a 60 to 65% win rate on whoever has the best main tank. I think it's a huge position, and let's get started. I want to start the video with this. This week is one of my favorite weeks of the year. This week is the NFL draft. The NFL draft, if you are unfamiliar, it's the National Football League draft, where NFL teams, all 32, they get to one time a year. They get to pick and choose which players from the collegiate class that's graduating this year or is declaring eligible for the draft. They get to decide amongst all the players that are eligible to play in the NFL. They get to pick which ones they want to invest in. It's a whole crazy process. There's scouting combines. Players host team representatives to show off and perform in front of these teams to try to convince them to acquire them. It's a whole crazy process. And the reason why I bring it up is every year the NFL draft happens, and what all the teams are looking for, if I put it in one word, all the teams are looking for is value. A lot of teams, your players make your team. So in any business, let alone a sport, what you want to do is you want to look at the makeup of your team and find out one, who is most important on your team, what position in your team is most important, and two, where can I get the most value? How do I find a person that gives me the most value at the most valuable positions? And a lot of these NFL teams, they spend the NFL draft, especially the bad teams, they spend the NFL draft looking for a player that fits that entire bill at the most important position in football, quarterback. They spent you're about to give this guy millions. Quarterback is considered to be a leader on the team. So it's a really huge process for the NFL teams to find out which player they're going to, put their time and money into. So, when I was thinking about this week, I was thinking, if quarterback is the most important position in football, what is the most important position in Overwatch? And I've been thinking about it a lot. I've had this theory for a long time, but I've always felt like main tank is the most important position in Overwatch, and especially in the Overwatch League. It's like in queues. Every time you queue for a game, it's hard to find a good main tank player. That's why the queues are so fast, because it's a hard position and no one wants to play it. But main tank is so important for the team comps. I mean, the main tanks, they create space on the map. Map control is huge. They set the pace. A lot of times the main tank is the initiator in any team fight, which means that, their decision to engage with the enemy, that's their call a lot of times. And, if it goes well, most of the time the team starts to perform better. If a main tank is bad, a lot of times everyone else on the team will start to feel the repercussions of that. So main tank, in my opinion, might not be the flashiest, he might not have the best stats, but I think main tank is the hardest talent to find in the Overwatch League. And I actually did a little bit of research before this, and I found out that of the 20 Overwatch League teams, 75% of the Overwatch League teams, they change main tanks in the offseason leading up into the 2021 Overwatch League season, which is absolutely crazy. Some people might think that some teams feel like that position is interchangeable, but I believe all these teams are looking to find their great main tank talent. A lot of teams bet on rookies. A lot of teams, they acquire supports from other teams. They acquire supports, they get damage players, but so many teams invest in rookies in particular. They're looking for rookie main tanks. Because honestly, a lot of Overwatch League teams, they look at other main tanks from other teams in past seasons and they say, we've seen all we need to see. And you know what? They're not worth the squeeze. So we'd rather bet on someone who's never played in the Overwatch League versus a player that we have a lot of tape on. So that says a lot about the main tank position, which, that's why I wanted to do this WIN-STON versus LOSE-TON game. Because honestly, I think that, obviously different teams have different strengths. Some teams' best players obviously aren't their main tank, but having a great main tank, I think, is a recipe for having great success. And that's why I want to predict these games, depending on who has the better main tank. And can't wait to see if that theory proves true. Okay, then. Let's go through our predictions for week 3. Let me scroll up here. Yeah, we are in week 3 of the Overwatch League season. So let's go down the list of all these main tanks and pick which team I believe is going to win based solely on who has the better main tank. So let's start with Thursday's games. Paris Eternal versus Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign has Gator. Paris Eternal has Don. And honestly, I like Atlanta Reign in this matchup. I think Gator's been with the team for 2 years now, since the 2019 season. And his WIN-STON play, in particular, improved a lot in week 1. And don't forget Atlanta, they got reverse swept by Toronto, but they were very close to being 1-1. So don't sell your stock in Atlanta Reign. We're gonna go. We're just gonna do 3-0, so I remember who I picked. But we're gonna go Gator on Atlanta Reign. I believe they're gonna beat Paris just based on Gator. Washington Justice versus Boston Uprising. That's Mag on Washington versus Stand One on Boston. Yeah, we're going to Washington. Mag's one of the hottest rookies. I was extremely impressed. That Washington's extremely stacked across the board with all their positions. But Mag is a rookie. And that, of a team of all veterans on the Washington Justice, I think every starter position has at least 2 years, probably has 2 years of starting experience, and Mag is the only rookie they have on their starting lineup, which says a lot about his talent. So we're gonna go with Washington. They're predicted to be one of the hottest teams in the league. Boston versus London. This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to predict. First off, let's talk about these teams. Boston has Stand One. Stand One is a main tank from Shanghai. He was on Shanghai last year in their incredible season last year, Shanghai Dragons. So Stand One was acquired by Boston to become their new starter. And London has Hottie. Hottie was the British Hurricane main tank, and this is his first year in the Overwatch League. It's gonna be a little hard to tell. Right now, I'm gonna go with Boston. I'm gonna go with Boston Stand One. Stand One looked pretty good on Shanghai Dragons last year. Fearless played WIN-STON for Shanghai last year, so they swapped out Stand One whenever they needed a WIN-STON, but Stand One still had a pretty considerable contribution for the Shanghai Dragon success. So we're going to stick with that for this prediction. We're going to go with Boston Stand One over London Spitfire Hottie. San Francisco Shock versus Florida Mayhem. This is where it gets interesting. I'm gonna pick based on WIN-STON play. I think Super is a good tank, but I think both these teams are going to rely on their WIN-STONs for this matchup. And so that's San Francisco Shock's Smurf versus Florida Mayhem's OGE. And I love OGE. I actually think he's an incredible player. He just hasn't been able to synergize with his team. But let's be real. Smurf is insane. Smurf's been on the team this is his 3rd season, and Smurf is just a freaking monster. There's no other way to say it. I mean, the San Francisco Shock have won 2 championships in a row, and Smurf's been integral in all of those lineups. Seriously, even last year with the Roadhog, Smurf would come in and still play Roadhog, play Wrecking Ball. Smurf I think he's probably the best overall main tank in the game, at least most consistent. Next up, we're gonna have Washington Justice versus Toronto Defiant. Last game on Friday. Let me update Shock here. So Shock, we're gonna base on Smurf. Toronto versus Justice. So this is something that I'm curious about because Sato. I don't like Sato as a player. I think on Philadelphia he's always been a B level player, B+ at best. I think Philadelphia's team synergy and team structure really aided Sato. He's still obviously good. He's had a lot of success, but I'm still going to go with Mag on Washington Justice. Sato just has a mental block. He has a ceiling, and he always starts off hot, and then he hits that ceiling pretty around mid-season. So I'm going to go with Washington. I'm going to go with Mag. Mag really impressed me. They didn't play amazing teams. They played Dallas, and they played Vancouver in week 2. Washington Justice did. And I'm going to bet on Mag on this one. I think Mag has the higher ceiling. At this point in the season, I'd rather take higher ceilings than lower floors, if that makes any sense. So we're going to go with Washington Justice with Mag. And lastly, on Saturday's games. For Saturday's games, we're going to go through Florida Mayhem versus Paris. OGE, I was debating OGE beating Smurf on Shock versus Mayhem on Friday. We're going to go with Florida Mayhem. OGE is a great tank. I think he's easily top 5 in the league. Even though he's been moving teams, moving around from Fuel to Gladiators to Florida now. I think talent-wise, pure talent, he's incredible. London Spitfire versus Defiant. Again, Sato, he's a B player. He's a consistent, always B player, which, most teams can work with. Most teams could definitely work with. It's not what I'm looking for. I want the best main tank, but Toronto has a solid player in Sato, so we're going to take Toronto over London because of Sato's consistent play. And London's still trying to figure things out. And lastly, for the Western games, we got Smurf versus Atlanta Reign. You're going to learn real fast that the Shock tank line across the board, I think it's probably the best tank line. Time will tell, but I think they have the best tank line in the league. About to be 3 years in a row. So we're going to pick Shock. We're going to pick Smurf over Gator. Even though I do think this game will be closer. It could be closer than we think, especially if Atlanta really forces the Reinhardt rush meta. Again, I just want to reiterate that I'm pretty much basing my rankings this week based on their Winston play. A lot of teams have been playing Reinhardt, obviously, but I want to base my picks off Winston because I think Winston will be the deciding factor, particularly when we get to the main melee next week. That's for the Western region. So we are moving on to the East, to our APAC teams. Let's see here. Let's start here with Friday's games. We're going to look at the Los Angeles Valiant versus the Guangzhou Charge. Honestly, LA Valiant, God, I can't remember what their main tank is. That's how much I hate the LA Valiant. I talked about this in my power rankings, but LA Valiant, who knows? LA Valiant actually aren't as bad as we thought they would be. So if that's a good thing, I'm not really sure. But Silver 3, I believe Silver 3 is the main tank for Valiant. Yeah, I don't know why I looked it up because I'm still going to pick Guangzhou Charge in this game. Guangzhou Charge has Rio. Rio to me is kind of like, he's like a lesser Sato in the APAC region. Rio for Guangzhou Charge, he's been with the team since 2019. This is his 3rd season. It says a lot to me that the Guangzhou Charge, they're one of the 5 teams that didn't change their main tank. Guangzhou Charge, they believe in Rio. They've kind of been middle pack for the past 3 years, so I don't know if that's a good move personnel-wise, but they believe in him, and he's definitely better than the LA Valiant tank Silver 3. So, Guangzhou Charge, we're taking them. We're going to take Seoul Dynasty versus New York Excelsior. Gesture. So it's Gesture on Seoul versus Yakpum on New York. Gesture. We're going Gesture, please. I love talking about Gesture. He's not my favorite player. I wouldn't build a team around him personally. But in terms of being in the media and getting to talk about these tanks, Gesture is so much fun to watch. He's really talented. He's pretty good Winston. He's an amazing Orisa. Reinhardt is yet to be desired, but his ball's not bad either. Gesture just has this uncanny ability to just pop off and really, he performs when the moment requires him to, which, as a manager, in your head, you say, I hate that. I don't like it when people pick and choose when they want to perform. But in terms of ceilings, Gesture, when he performs well, it seems like he can take over any game. So we're gonna go with Seoul. Yakpung, I'm keeping my eye on. I think he's unspoken talent that stats didn't show, but they only played this week. I'm very curious how New York's gonna do. And Yakpung was a hot talent in 2019, and I think that might carry over this year, especially because he spent a year in contenders, grinding it out and kind of resetting his brain. And now he understands how to be a pro. So anyway, we're gonna go with Gesture for Seoul though. I think Gesture is still, in my opinion, a top 5 tank. The team, regardless of his team and how his team structure is and just their personality, Gesture talent-wise, absolutely insane. Next up, Shanghai Dragons versus Hangzhou Spark. Now this is tough. This is probably one of my toughest picks because Hangzhou Spark has Gushui and Shanghai Dragons has Fate. So this is where the picks get interesting. I think Gushui, ceiling-wise, Gushui is a better main tank than Fate. Fate's been shopped around for the past few years. That bothers me a little bit. I don't like that Fate's been passed off like a piece of bread. He was on Valiant, and then he went to Shanghai, or not, excuse me, not to Shanghai, went to Florida and kind of hit his ceiling there, and now Shanghai acquired him. I got a feeling Shanghai didn't want to pay, couldn't pay Fearless or Stand One for the max amount of money, so they picked up Fate. But yeah, so Fate's probably at best, at his best time, I think Fate's probably a B main tank. I think Shanghai downgraded from Fearless, picking up Fate. And I think Guxue, some people think is washed up. I think Guxue has shown that he has a lot of talent. So based on the main tank only, I'm going to go with Hongshu. I'm picking Hongshu to win simply because I think Guxue, man, something about Guxue. I mean, he invented the word Primal Blade. Maybe he didn't invent it, but he coined it because when no one else is playing Winston, he was so good at Winston, he almost beat GOATs by himself. He would beat GOAT comps by playing Winston when no one else was. Which says a lot about how good he is on that hero in particular. So that one's gonna, Hongzhu is gonna be an interesting one to see if that pans out. Seoul Dynasty versus LA Valiant on Saturday. Seoul, come on, Gesture. We talked about if Rio can beat the LA Valiant, we know Gesture's better. We're gonna skip that, Gesture for Seoul. We're gonna go to Guangzhou versus Hongshu. I'm gonna go with Hongshu again. Guxue is better than Rio. I have no qualms in saying that. Across every metric, I think Guxue is a better player than Rio. So we're gonna stick with Spark. And lastly, Shanghai versus New York. Fate versus Yakpeng. Fate on Shanghai, Yakpeng on New York. I got to go with my heart here. I'm actually gonna go with Shanghai. Shanghai beating New York Excelsior. Yakpeng has a lot to prove. I think he's one of my favorite players to keep my eye on, but Fate, I know I just went on a rant about how saying Guxue is better than Fate. That doesn't mean Fate's terrible. I think Fate's serviceable. I think the rest of his team, especially after Shanghai got shellacked week 1, I think that Fate's going to take some time, build a little bit more synergy. I think they're figuring out the meta a little more. Something with Shanghai that I feel like they're not good at adjusting in metas. I feel like they're really good at, once the meta is settled in, they have so much talent in their personnel that they just become perfect at the meta. So I'm predicting that Shanghai, they had a week off. Shanghai didn't play last week, so they had some time in the workshop, and I think they're going to pop off. And Fate, at least in this scenario, Fate versus Yakpeng, Fate's going to do... Fate is more proven. Yakpeng might end up being better. Fate is more proven at this point in the season. So that's my pick. Last pick for this week is Shanghai versus New York. Now, all that being said, Sunday has the knockout matches. We don't know what teams are going to be playing, so I can't predict the actual final qualifiers for the Melee. But amongst these teams here, these are the players that I am picking across the board on main tank credentials alone. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. Those were all of my predictions, who's going to win in week 3 of the Overwatch League, based solely on who has the better main tank. I really can't wait to see how my percentages match up between my Winston versus Lewiston picks versus my regular pick'em picks. I'll be honest, my pick'em picks are not only based on whoever has the better main tank, but I'm actually curious how often I match those two things. So we're going to be doing that every week. So I'm going to, hopefully I'll be able to pull some stats together and show you guys, hopefully mid-season, where those two prediction lines intersect. So make sure you do your pick'ems. It's going to be a great week of games. We are 1 week away from the May Melee. I am so excited for these teams. A lot of these teams are settling into the meta. They're starting to figure out which players they can rely on. It's going to be really fun, and especially the teams this week that haven't played since week 1. I'm very curious if those teams were able to take a week, do some film study, do some prep work, and really come into the May Melee swinging. Qualifiers on Sunday are going to be crazy. And the best part is we have the Overwatch League, and we still have the NFL Draft this weekend. So super pumped. It's going to be great, guys. Make sure you like the video and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.